Letters from a Slave Girl, pages 105 to 107. September 1835. Dear Stephen, it's hard to breathe in here. The air is so close and stale, makes me feel like I've been buried alive. I think of you at sea and remember what you tell Aunt Betty once when you come home from a trip. Bet, you say, I belong to Mr. B and I work his ship, but when we sail along I am free as a bluebird. This hiding place reminds me of a sailor's bed. The space is only 9 feet long and 7 feet wide. The high part is 3 feet, and then it slopes down to nothing. But I don't feel like any bluebird, more like a dressed chicken ready for the spit. Being sick with fever, I don't remember my first days here, and that is merciful. Gran and Mark helped me stand on a barrel to climb through the trapdoor. I sleep for hours and hours on a bed of blankets, unknowing that mice run over me. Under my blankets are rough boards that make the ceiling of the room under me. 5 years ago, Uncle Mark built a storeroom on the piazza for Gran's barrels of flour and meal. While I was in the Snaky Swamp, he quick built a cupboard in the corner of the storeroom. Then he cut a hole through the top of the cupboard into my space. When not being used to pass messages or food, the trapdoor fits back into place. It is my door to the world. The heat was bad at first. There was only thin pine shingles between me and the sun, and after the heat come the red mites. Hundreds of tiny little insects, no bigger than the point of a hemming needle. They poke into my skin and burn like sparks from Gran's oven. She gave me cold tea compresses. After some weeks, the sting went away. Today is a small victory. I hit my head on a gimlet that Mark forgot and left stuck in the wall. So I used the gimlet to drill 3 little holes, one above the other. Then I make holes between the holes, till I got a peephole, 1 inch long and 1 inch broad. I've been sitting by it for hours, taking in as much fresh air as I can. Sometimes, Uncle Stephen, I think I might start to holler and never stop. Harriet. Please stop here and answer question 1. October 1835. Dear Uncle Stephen, this is the truth from my heart, from here to glory. I don't blame you, and I hope you don't blame yourself. From where I sit, I say freedom is worth any price. But I am sorry the price you've got to pay is never seeing Aunt Betty again. Gran whispers through the trapdoor last night that Betty is beside herself. When Mr. B.'s ship come home without you yesterday, she almost faint dead away. She is full of grief, and I wish I could go to her, but nobody knows I'm up here except Gran and Uncle Mark. When Norcom put Mark in jail, he threatened to torture him to find out where I was, so to protect Betty, they won't tell her till it's safe. And the children, they can't never suspect their mamma is a-layin' up under the roof in a space no bigger than a few coffins. I can hear Joseph and Louisa playing only a few feet away on the piazza, and if I hold myself just right, I can look through the peephole and see the street. Some mornings I even see the doctor on his way to the office. He just spent good money looking for me again in New York. After separating you from Aunt Betty, I can guess how you feel about him, Stephen. It's all my doing, Uncle, and that cuts me up inside. Norcom was trying to punish me when he forbid Betty to see you after I run away. You've been a loyal friend. I won't soon forget that you risked the lash hiding me on your master's ship, and you'd have got me passage to the north if there had been any safe way to do it. Aunt Betty lost the treasure when she lost you, and it's all my fault. It's raining some now. The damp air cools the boards under my back. It takes my mind off feeling like I'm the only person left in the world. Harriet. Please stop here and answer question 2. November 1835. Dear Uncle Stephen, all the years I've been reading the newspaper, I never did think I would see my own name. Aunt Betty found this old copy laying in the doctor's study and gave it to Gran. I scraped some drops of pine tar from the shingles to stick the notice here in my book. $100 reward will be given to the apprehension and delivery of my servant girl Harriet. She is a light mulatto, 21 years of age, about 5 feet 4 inches high, of a thick and corpulent habit, having on her head a thick covering of black hair that curls naturally, but which can easily become straight. She speaks easily and fluently, and has agreeable carriage and address. Being a good seamstress, she has been accustomed to dress well, has a variety of very fine clothes, and made in the prevailing fashion, and will probably appear, if abroad, tricked out in gay and fashionable finery. As this girl absconded from the plantation of my son without any known cause or provocation, it is probably she designs to transport herself to the north. The above reward, with all reasonable charges, will be given for apprehending her or securing her in any prison or jail within the U.S. States. All persons are hereby forewarned against harboring or entertaining her or being in any way instrumental in her escape under the most rigorous penalties of the law. James Norcom, Edenton, North Carolina, June 30th. John has moved back to town from the Sawyer farm. He used to be Samuel's personal servant in his townhouse, and to check on Samuel's brother and sister. They need watching since they both subject to fits. So John got a long time pass out to be out late. Some nights he lifts my trap door and we talk in whispers. He says his lot is better now. He eats enough and there is no threat of the whip. But John still has his freedom dream. He says, "Harriet, I am only happier because I can see my chance for escape clearer. When we were little, I was Miss High and Mighty. I always thought John would be the one to get in trouble. Now John out walking in the fresh air, and look at me, a-laying up here like a bird with a broken wing." Uncle Mark has made one small improvement. His chamber is on the house side of my cell. He knocked a hole through the plaster wall behind his bed. They have to kneel down and lean over, but now I can talk to him and Gran more easily. The weather in October was bearable, but come November there was an early frost. Gran brung more covers and heated bricks, but without the fireplace I am helpless against the cold. It has warmed up some in the past few days. I am planning what to make for Joseph and Louisa for Christmas. I thank God for knowing how to sew. Not in the mood to thank Miss Margaret. Harriet. December 25th, 1835. Dear Uncle Stephen, we still had no straight news of you. Aunt Betty is still broke up over you running away, but mostly she is strong about it, like when she lose your babies year after year. Sometimes she cries and says she never even got to say goodbye. When my arms and legs get so cramped I can hardly move, I try to remember others suffering beside me. I hope you celebrating your first free Christmas in a warm, safe spot. Wherever you are missing a feast. All day I've been smelling Gran's roast turkey and pork. Gran, she cooks Christmas dinner up right, with stewed vegetables, oyster soup, and her best fruit cake. After dark she will tap on a certain wall. That means food coming. It is a lonely business, spending Christmas in this dark hole. My children so close by I can hear them playing with the dolls I made. And Joseph, what a proud little man he is, walking around in his suit I sewed. Well, they not with their mamma, but they not in the slave quarters at Auburn. When it gets dreadful bad, I think of that. Gran has invited an odd crew to dinner. The town constable and a free-colored, a traitor who puts himself in good light with white folks by catching runaways like me. She plans to take them upstairs and show them Uncle Mark's pet mockingbird. Then they can see for themselves, nobody hiding in Molly Hornablow's house. I've been reading the Bible many hours a day. I'm not sure there's a promised land, but it helps to pretend. Harriet. Please stop here and answer question 3. January 1836. Dear Uncle Stephen, I don't always recall what day it is. Sometimes I sleep for hours in fits and starts, hardly knowing who or where I am. Then it gets dark and Gran knocks to bring food or empty the slop bucket. And I wake up cold and stiff and wondering why God lets Maria Norcom sleep in a feather bed while I sleep on boards. Lately it's been too noisy to pass the hours sleeping. They is making repairs to the courthouse roof, and the hammering and clinking travels easily through the cold winter air. Hours and hours of it, till the sounds bores into my head the way those mites got into my skin. There was 2 inches of snow a few weeks back. I heard my boy and girl outside playing and squealing like 2 little pigs. Gran puts Joseph in charge of his little sister the way she used to put me in charge of John. Except Joseph is not as bossy as me. Last week a heavy rain come. Gran say it was the worst in a year. Uncle Mark gave me oakum to fill in the chinks between the shingles. Even so, my clothes soak through like I've been baptized in a creek. Gran been bringing me hot sassafras tea, hoping I won't get sick. Nobody to doctor me if I do, except John. Samuel's been sending John out to the Sawyer plantation to treat his coloreds. The overseer, he always claims they not sick, but John goes right on giving Peru bark for the mitten fever and mullein and onion soup for the cough. Aunt Betty says Norcom is well known for his doctoring. I guess he taught John well. But how can a man, good at healing a body, have so little care for the spirit inside? Gran says there has been smallpox over in Elizabeth City. Lord, save us. Harriet. Please stop here and answer question 4. August 1836. Dear Uncle Stephen, your poor Betty been plagued all summer. It was a sickly season, and she has nursed everybody in the Norcom house. One of the doctor's young boys, stand-in, had the cold and fever. Their infant son, William, got it next. Not much help from Maria Norcom. She gone out to Auburn to nurse young James's little Martha. Many in Norcom's colored folks been bad too. Mella lost her little girl. Gran, she thinks it might be cholera. She frets about me, but I say, Gran, I am too mean to get sick. The heat been fierce, till thick tears of turpentine fall from the roof. It gets in my hair, and no amount of combing will unstick it. It's so hot under these boards, even the mosquitoes don't visit. When I forgive God enough to pray, I thank him for that small favor. Gran and Mark's still looking for an escape route, but Norcom has the ship searched now and again. The risk of running is too high, especially when it means leaving my babies to try it. Thinking back, Stephen, I wonder that you waited so long to escape. Many a time you could have hopped ship at a northern port, but for 20 years you kept coming back to your bed. She thinks because you were married regular by a preacher, but I think because you loved your wife more than freedom. Aunt Betty, she was blessed. Harriet. December 1836. Dear Uncle Stephen, Christmas already. Time is a whisper I can't hear. Was it yesterday I watched my little boy riding through the yard on a cornstalk horse? And Louisa, she was rocking her muslin baby with the button eyes. But that was last week. Yes, I remember clear now. There were coppered-colored leaves falling past the peephole. We had a hard rain, then snow, then more rain. I am cold, so cold. Harriet. January 1837. Dear Uncle Stephen, Uncle, I nearly died. John found me a-layin' in a stupor. I come to, with him throwing water in my face and crying over and over, Harriet, wake up! My head, face, even my tongue turned numb. For weeks he'd been nursing me with herbs, roots, and ointment. Today I can sit up a little to write this letter, but only to tell you that Gran is now broke down herself. I take the blame. All the worry, been too much for her. Some of the Silver Spoon ladies in town been visiting Gran. Maria Norcom, she don't bend her head for nobody, but she was shamed by the others into coming by. First thing out of her brass spoon mouth was, Mark, why haven't you called for Dr. Norcom? So she sends for the doctor straight away, and I have a fit of panic when I hear him downstairs. He has offered his services, but Mark thinks he only wants to run up a bill. The Norcoms, they are two limbs from the same tree, and neither give a twig for Gran. I hope prayer is enough to get her well. Luna would say, if you let a buzzard spread the shadow of wings on the roof, death will come, but Gran don't hold with superstition. The Lord put me in this world, she says, and he can take me out. Harriet. Please stop here and answer question 5. August 1st, 1837. Dear Uncle Stephen, sickness finally left this house. I guess somebody wiped the buzzard's shadow off the roof. Gran is well again, and I thank God for that. It has been intensely hot. I am ashamed to say I spend most hours wearing only a chemise and underwearing. The town is dull and lifeless. I don't hear people calling to each other in the street, even by mid-morning. Aunt Betty says all the white folks gone to New Bern to breathe the healthy sea air, but I know one white folk gone north again looking for his valuable property. When Gran tells me the doctor went to New York, I feel safer right off. So early in the morning I've been climbing down to the storeroom and stretching my arms and legs. When they helped me down the first time, I sway like a sapling in the wind that my ankles give way. The door to the storeroom got windows in it. When I can stand, I look out and fill my eyes with the dawn till Gran whispers, Harriet, the children be waking up soon. Aunt Betty says Norcom coming back in time to vote on August 10th. Samuel's running for Congress. Uncle, I don't dare think of that election. What if he wins and goes to Washington City without freeing the children? What if he dies and the children they sold away? Well, Gran says a lot of what-ifs don't make a did happen. I got 10 days to figure it out, and I've been learning something about patience. Harriet. Please stop here and answer question 6. September 1837. Dear Uncle Stephen, you and Aunt Betty lost a sluice of babies, but if you'd raised any, you'd understand how anxious I've been. Gran and Mark all put out with me, and even your sweet Betty says I've been foolish. Yesterday, Mark tells me Samuel's taken the night steamboat to Washington City. Guess he thinks he's going to be a big boss dog politician. Without telling anybody, I climbed down to the storeroom at 9 o'clock. My legs limped like baby doll legs. I had to sit on the floor and smack them to get the blood rolling again. I had not been so scared since the first night you hid me on Mr. B.'s ship. Soon I hear Samuel on the street. He tells his friend, "Wait here, I gotta see Aunt Molly." Then he visits with Gran and says goodbye to Joseph and Louise. Reckon he feels like a daddy sometimes, even if he don't act it out in public. When he walks back out, I grab my chance. "Stop a minute," I say real low through the half-open shutter, "and let me speak for my babies." Imagine how I feel, Stephen, when he keeps on going and I hear the gate slam. But presently he come back after sending the friend on his way. "Who called me?" he asks. "I did," I reply. "Harriet," he says. "I knew your voice, but I was afraid to answer. They are mad to allow you allowed to hide here." "I don't want nothing for myself," I whisper. "All I ask is you free the children before you go." "I will free them," Samuel promises, "and I shall try again to purchase you from Dr. Norcom." Stephen. I heard him say the words, but even as I write them down, they hard to believe. Then Samuel goes inside and tells Gran not to let me stay in her house overnight, or we will all be caught. He would not believe the truth if he heard it, that I've been here for 2 years, and in that time only 2 things left in my life's cup: the pain in my body and the sound of my children growing up. Gran and Mark helped me back up to the hole in the dark. "Come, come, child," she fussed, "it won't do for you to stay down here another minute. You done wrong," she says, "but I can't blame you." Mark brung me hot flag root tea to ease the hurting in my legs, and they left me alone with only my letters to you. Harriet. Please stop here and answer question 7. January 2nd, 1838. Dear Uncle Stephen, a quiet Christmas season, not even a gunshot or firecracker at New Year. The only bright decoration been the John Cannis parade. This year some colored hands come across the sound from Mr. Collins' Somerset plantation. They joined up with the rest of the gang, and I heard them singing and prancing up Broad Street. A few womenfolk come too, and Gran got to visit with her friends Violet and Betsy. She served tea and some fresh-baked rusks. Even pull out her snowy white cloths and silver teaspoons from the buffet. To hear them laughing and talking all at once was a gift. Your Bet come to see me last night. She always feels poorly at the end of hiring out day. Says she needs to be with her own family after seeing so many others broke up. She says even the doctor acting low. "This is an unhappy country," she heard the doctor tell his wife, "in which man is obliged to tax his fellow man for sweat and service against his will." Stephen. That's big talk, but Norcom, he don't feel bad enough. Else he'd do all the tilling and planting and hoeing and cleaning his own self and let us go free. But slavery must be like that claret he likes to drink, just too good to give up. Harriet. January 10th, 1838. Dear Uncle Stephen, I've been passing many hours sewing pieces of dresses and shirts that Gran cut out, and my brain is busy as the needle. What if Norcom thought for sure that I was in the North? Then I could feel safer like I did when he gone looking for me last summer. Well, Stephen, your Betty always says you don't get nowhere a settin' on your hands, and I've been getting plenty of practice writing letters. Now I'm ready to cut up some meanness. Harriet. January 20th, 1838. Sullivan Street, New York City. Dear Dr. Norcom, do you remember your Harriet? You knew me when I was a child and helpless in your power. Years of misery you brung to me. Now I am free of you and doing well here in the Free States. You will be glad to know I still wear fine clothes and got a good head of thick hair. My friends say I look quite healthy. Please do me the favor of delivering this sealed letter to my grandmother, and give my regards to your kind wife. Believe me, very truly, no longer yours, Harriet Ann Jacobs. January 20th, 1838. Dear Grandmother, this letter will be delivered to you by favor of Dr. Norcom. Can you send Joseph and Louisa to me as soon as possible? I need them with me, as in the North I can teach them to respect themselves. I am now with friends in New York, but live in Boston. Please send your answer to 31 Atkinson Street, Boston, Massachusetts. Your affectionate Harriet. January 21st, 1838. Dear Uncle Stephen, Gran, says Norcom going to figure out my trick and knock hell's Pete out of the children just to get even. But it's more of a risk for Peter, who has fixed it so the letter be mailed from New York. I would trade Mama's silver thimble just to see Norcom go chasing after me in Boston. Harriet. January 24th, 1838. Dear Uncle Stephen, the bluff had done its work. Aunt Betty told Gran that Norcom got the letters. Gran expecting him to come and leaves the door open downstairs so I can hear them talking. He comin' with my letters, Gran says, his eyes bright as blue glass marbles. She sits him in a chair near the door. I suppose, Molly, he says, you have no objection to my reading the letter Harriet has written to you. And then he reads this made-up letter from me. Dear Grandmother, it said, I have long wanted to write to you, but the disgraceful manner in which I left you and my children made me ashamed to do it. I have purchased freedom at a dear rate. If any arrangement could be made for me to return to the South without being a slave, I would gladly come. Write as soon as possible to your unhappy granddaughter, Harriet. Old Grayhead. He thinks he can trick Gran into getting me back home. Well, it proves he believes I am in the North, and that has been my aim all along. Now I can climb down to the storeroom every day. Harriet. Please stop here and answer question 8. July, 1838. Dear Uncle Stephen, John been sent to Washington City to serve Samuel. His letters say life for a slave is better there. He can come and go all he wants, and there's lots of lively parties and carryings on. Says the men in Congress play cards as much as they vote. Ever since my brother left, I've been thinking about his freedom dream. Be so easy for him to slip away. Samuel promised John, you'll never serve another master after me. It's a good thing promises are free, or Samuel would be in the poorhouse. He has lied, something scandalous, Uncle Stephen. Been almost a year, and Joseph and Louise are not free yet. Harriet. Dear Uncle Stephen, John has written to say that Samuel will be married next month. She is the niece of the woman who runs his boarding house in Washington City. The wedding will be in Chicago, and John is going with them. I've been cheated all around. My children losing their daddy and maybe their freedom. I am losing the onlyest white man I ever felt safe with. And Chicago isn't a free state. Might lose my brother too. Harriet. Please stop here and answer question 9. July 22nd, 1838. Dear Uncle Stephen, I can't worry about anything but the heat now. Aunt Betty heard Norcom complain it was 100 degrees in his office. Sometimes I think I am ready to go to my glory. Then I hear the children on the piazza, and I forget myself for a while. An exhibit come through town last Saturday, and Gran says everybody threw down work to go. The whole county was there, even Dr. Norcom with his young children laughing at the animals in spite of his sour self. Gran, she says Joseph and Louisa were happy as two birds flying and didn't seem to notice the strong smell of the beasts or their dung. She almost choked on the stench. She is a good soul to do this for my motherless babies. Harriet. August 11th, 1838. Dear Uncle Stephen, the heat is not let up. There's a drought, and Aunt Betty says Norcom's crops are half gone. Death been dancing through town. They found Charles, a colored boy, drowned at the mouth of Queen's Anne Creek, and Norcom's son, Benjamin Rush, is dying of a slow and painful disease. Samuel being married today. John wrote that they'd taken him with them on their honeymoon to Canada. Most likely they having a fancy hat wedding in a big church with flowers and a cake all iced up white as snow. No jumping like a cricket over a broomstick for Samuel's lady. No, sir. Only the best for Miss Lavinia. I never met her, but how come I know it, Uncle Stephen, that she is just a loaf of sugar no bigger than a button, with cheeks as pink as an apple blossom, and little feet taking her teensy self down the aisle in satin slippers. Some days it's hard to be a Christian. Harriet. Please stop here and answer question 10.